What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, I'm going to show you one amazing use for these tomato cages. And as a spoiler, it's not for tomatoes. If you're thinking about putting tomatoes in here, forget about it. We're caging our squash. Let's go. So when it comes to squash, keeping them on the ground is obviously the common method that most gardeners will apply to growing their squash because it's the easiest. They're just going to grow up, they're going to grow out, and they take up a lot of space. Now, they're still going to take up as much space with these tomato cages, but you're going to get a few benefits with using the tomato cages that you're not going to get growing them on the ground. The first benefit that you're going to get by staking up these tomato cages is you're going to get airflow. That's really important, especially in later season when you have a lot more humidity, a lot more kind of warm, humid days where water does not evaporate as fast, and things like powdery mildew take hold much quicker. And so if you can get your plants up off the ground, you're naturally going to have more airflow underneath those leaves, drying them out much faster, and your plants should be a whole lot healthier. So in order to stake up our squash, what we're going to be using is these tomato cages. Now, these tomato cages, they're not really good for anything, but what you want to do is if they are a 3-rung or a 4-rung, you want to cut them down to about 2 rungs. You really don't want this lower rung down here. It's far too narrow, and you're going to find your plants are going to be really constricted. And so we're going to take our wire cutters here, or bolt cutters, I should say. We're going to cut off that bottom rung, which is really going to help us to open up the tomato cage and allow us, also the welds rarely ever hold on these tomato cages. So there we go. So now what we're left with is a little bit shorter tomato cage with a wider lower rung. That's really important to getting the plant off the ground. So now what we're going to do is we're going to stick it over top of the plant, and we're going to tuck those leaves up inside that bottom rung. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the tomato cage, just stick it in the soil here. And now, because you're noticing we're going to be smashing some of these leaves, we're going to instead just pick these leaves up and gently coax them inside of this cage here. What that's going to do is it's going to provide some support underneath. Whoops, not that one. That's why you want to be careful there. That's okay. They'll have lots more leaves. Just don't want to break too many when they're young like this. This is going to allow us to get these leaves up and over top of this support so that it's holding the leaves up off the ground. It's going to keep things like slugs from coming in. It's going to help more airflow to prevent things like powdery mildew. It's also really going to help the plant to actually keep the fruit off the ground as well, which will prevent things like earwigs, slugs, and other insects that usually can actually eat the fruits of your squash plant. It's going to keep them from coming in because the fruits themselves are also going to rest on these upper rungs here. So you'll notice the rungs tend to push down, but once they're down far enough, they're not going to slide down much further, and the plants are basically just going to, as they grow, continue to support on this upper rung here, and then at that point it can actually just fully sprawl. So when it's young like this, main thing is just keeping all this growth inside of the tomato cage so it's not falling on the ground, and then you're actually going to have a lot of support that's going to keep the plant nice and healthy. So again, what we're doing, we're just taking this tomato cage just to show you again. We're cutting off the bottom rung so we don't have as narrow of a gap. We're going to take the tomato cage here, and we're going to take it, we're going to stick it over top of the plant. Now, this one here has got a lot of foliage, so we're going to start to, as we're putting this tomato cage on, we're going to start to tuck some of this stuff up because there's a lot here. You'll notice how easily that goes up in there. There we go, just like that. There we go. Awesome. Now those leaves are going to be resting on that lower rung, and these leaves, as they get larger, they're going to kind of grow up, and we're going to rest them on this top rung. And that's all you really need. You don't need much taller than that. At that point, if you're getting much taller than that, you can go to like a 4-rung design, take off that lower rung and have 3 rungs, but you should be fine. This is a really easy way to get your squash plants off the ground using a tool that is otherwise completely useless for its original function. Another benefit to these tomato cages that works really well with squash is increasing pollination. I find that oftentimes when you trellis up or stake up your squash plants, it helps keep your foliage a little more organized. It actually helps to keep the blossoms more visible to pollinators. You see, if you're a bee, what you're looking for is not leaves. What you're looking for are flowers. And oftentimes, because the flowers form so close to the base of the plant, oftentimes what happens is that the leaves, they get all heavy and they flop on the ground, and it prevents the only flowers that are forming fruit to be blocked. Pollinators and other beneficial insects can't actually find them, and so we end up with far better fruit set when we stake up our plants. Now there's one final little benefit to staking up your plants, and that is that there's a huge reduction, I find, in squash bugs. Squash bugs tend to lay eggs on those lower leaves near the soil, and squash bugs and squash vine borer can be a really big problem on your squash, and I find that I have far less problems when I support my plants. Now, obviously, if you don't support your plants, it's not gonna be the end of the world, but I do find that through giving them some support and getting those lower leaves off the ground, it's going to help immensely with overall plant health, overall plant productivity, and it's just kind of a cool, fun way to use something that, like I said, otherwise has a completely pointless application. These are not great for tomatoes. I think most gardeners that have used them also can agree with that. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. If you did, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments box down below if you have tried this with your squash and your results that you've had with it. So as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider checking this one out. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you so much for your viewership, because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. If you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Consider doing that. We upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, rain or shine. And if you need any garden tools, supplies, or seeds, check out MIgardener.com. We got you covered. See you guys in the garden. Bye.